All right, folks, we're going to talk to you today about intakes. We released this carbon fiber intake for the F-type quite recently as part of our 2300 kits. Got a lot of questions about it, and we're almost ready to start shipping these, so we thought it'd be a good time to go over them with you and answer a few questions that we often get asked. So it's a really common one that people ask is, you know, with an intake, how much power is it going to add? And unfortunately, modifying vehicles isn't always just stacking one thing arithmetically on top of another. A lot of the time, it's a dependent question. So as an example, if we look at, let's say, stock intake tubing. So this is the stock Y pipe. These parts are made of injection molded plastic, pretty complex fluid dynamics analysis done by the manufacturer, and they can create more or less whatever they want. So they're actually quite efficient pieces for the most part, and they're not like intakes were in the 1980s when they might have been cobbled together from whatever bits of steel fit and had some flow compromises. So they're pretty good. And you have to remember that this Y pipe here is actually used on everything from a base 340 horsepower V6 right through to the 600 horsepower Project 8 in the V8s. So because of that, you've got a range of different flow requirements. And particularly if you take the V8 and crank it up to 750 horsepower like we've done on the 2300 kits, again, you might find that you have something which doesn't produce a bottleneck at all, doesn't make any difference to power if you upgrade it on a base model, but when you're trying to push out more than twice the power, perhaps it does become a restriction. So not always a concrete answer to does it add power. Really depends on the state of modification. Another thing that's really popular with these cars is that people want to hear supercharger whine. So you'll often see people fitting something like this. They'll replace this stock plastic Y pipe with an aluminum unit, sometimes with some couplers and a cone filter on the end. Totally can hear more supercharger whine. Nothing wrong with that. Lots of people love it, serves a purpose for them. But when we start getting into performance stuff, that's where the details matter. So as an example, if you were to compare the two critical dimensions on the stock Y pipe, one is the cross-sectional area here. So what is the area of this roughly circular pattern, and what is the area of this oval pattern, so that you can understand what the restriction might be. When we compare the stock part to this guy here, they've used, I believe, 2.5-inch tubing. There's some space requirements that are a little tricky to fulfill, so it's probably all you can fit in there on an F-type. And then it's necked down here into a merge and flared back up again to where it meets the throttle. So this part here is actually 21% smaller in cross-sectional volume than this one is here. So if you fit a aftermarket aluminum type, 21% less airflow here. This side's a little bit better. There's not as much restriction here. You're only losing 6% on this side. So nothing wrong with these if you're looking for an inexpensive way to produce a little bit more supercharger whine. Probably prone to a little bit of heat soak. Not so much when you're hammering the throttle and you got lots of air flying through here, but if you're sitting, idling, all that air is going to get heated up. You're going to gradually heat soak the engine, and then when you want to go step on it, your intake air temperatures are going to be a little bit higher. So that's one option for you. What are we trying to do when we set out to make this carbon fiber intake? One, we want to enable you to hear more supercharger whine without necessarily having to go smaller and without having to have compromises. So you'll see this isn't round. You got a lot of interesting angles here. This was completely designed in a 3D environment and modeled to the exact dimensions that we wanted, so we could maximize the volume and fit this into the tightest package possible, which is in the F-type. So this guy here, 97% larger cross-sectional volume here at the merge, right here. So you have 97% more ability to flow air through this merge collector right here. On the oval sides where we go down towards the filter boxes, you're looking at 18%. So 18% per side and 97% in the merge collector here. So does that equate to more power? Not necessarily, but it certainly allows you to put on a nice carbon fiber piece that's going to allow you to hear the supercharger whine you want without absorbing heat and without reducing the inlet volume on the intake. You probably noticed, if you got eagle eyes too, that we got a little hole in it here. So every single one of these carbon fiber Y pipes comes pre-threaded to put water methanol injection in. That's something that you absolutely have to run on the 2300 kits if you want to manage ignition timing. You can probably spice a little bit of race fuel in there and get a little bit of additional timing, but with this level of boost, we're seeing intake air temperatures that have to be controlled. So every time you buy one of these, it comes pre-tapped for water methanol injection. Great option for people that want to go further with the power. And then these link pipes. Like I said to you, a lot of complex three-dimensional shape in there. Why does it look so funny? Because we wanted to maintain this inlet volume all the way down to the mass airflow sensor to maximize the airflow. Again, on a 340 horsepower base F-type, you probably aren't seeing enough restriction in airflow for this to be an issue. But when we start pushing towards 800 horsepower and beyond, you're definitely going to need more airflow. So we've essentially engineered this intake with lots of extra headroom to continue to develop the products that people want to see on these cars. Big filters, lots of surface area, so we've custom made our own cone filters to maximize the amount of air that we can get in there. And retained all of the OEM mounting points. Nice PCV connection that's not going to leak, so we don't get any lean codes. So I know everybody's really excited to get these on the other vehicles. The next step for us that we've already started is to 3D scan this Y-pipe in situ in our own F-Pace SVR. We've also started scanning it in some of the other vehicles. This piece here is universal to every 3 and 5 liter supercharged engine application that Jaguar Land Rover has fitted them to. And we just need to figure out how to couple them to the stock air boxes, which, like with these link pipes, involves some fairly intricate custom-made silicone pieces. So this stuff's all on the way. Some of you have ordered an F-type intake already. This is our final revision right here, and we've got these going into production. So we appreciate everyone's patience. I think this is going to be a real hot product. These F-type intakes are $1,200 for a full carbon setup, which I think is phenomenal value in today's market. So if you got any questions about intakes, drop us a line. We've got them set up for the V6 and the V8 cars, and we will be able to support swapping V8 MAFs into the V6 cars for those of you that are pushing the limits of those engines as well. So real excited about this one. It's our first foray into intakes. We've tried to do this right, to spend the time to create a really quality product that operates at an OEM level and not just cobble some stuff together and fire it into the car.